Have you ever had that momentary spark of inspiration that causes you to pick up a pencil, start sketching a wonderful idea, only to be terribly disappointed and demotivated by what you have drawn? It looks nothing like what you imagined it to be, you just drop it, don't pursue it any further because the visual outcome didn't match the vision inside your head. This is why it is important to develop your drawing skills so that the world sees your full creative potential. Welcome to the second episode of Art School 101, a series where we're going through 101 core principles of art making, which have been summarized by Kit White, a professor of painting at Pratt Institute, in this book. Drawing is more than a tool for rendering and capturing likeness. It is a language with its own syntax, grammar, and urgency. Learning to draw is about learning to see. In this way, it is a metaphor for all art creativity. Whatever its form, drawing transforms perception and thought into image and teaches us to think with our eyes. Drawing is the foundation of visual art. It trains your eyes to see and your hands to follow. Any visual artistic expression that you will be trying will be positively affected by the existing basis of drawing. Let's say you want to be an illustrator or an animator. The understanding of human body, of the structure of it, of the skeleton, of the muscles, of the way the human body moves will be extremely important for you going forward, no matter how much you want to break the perspective and the proportion. Let's say you have a character whose head is like 3 times the size of the body is tiny, legs are super short, hands are short, arms are short. You will still want to understand how the joints move, how do the elbows work, how do the wrists work. You will want to kind of follow the structure of the human body movement if you want to express that that character can walk, can move, can jump. Even if their walk is a bit more bouncy than the normal person's, you want to understand how the movement works. And for that, you need to observe and draw. You need to understand the structure, you need to understand the connective points and where the body can move, where the body cannot move, so that it does look realistic, even if on top of that you apply some unrealistic, surreal versions or details. An example from art history here could be Pablo Picasso. With that name, you can immediately think of his cubist works of sculpture and painting and ceramic work, but in reality he has a huge basis of drawing. Supposedly, Pablo Picasso was able to draw before he could talk, and by the age of 13, he outmastered his father, who was a teacher of art. It took me 4 years to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to paint like a child. And that encompasses the principle quite well. If you want to break the perspective, break the rules, break the norms and structures of a, let's say, human body if you're trying to draw, then you need to understand how it functions on the baseline. And then you can break it down in a way that is more convincing. And that might be where, let's say now you want to create some kind of creative artistic piece. You're doing it, but it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel complete, or it's missing a little bit of that spice. That spice comes from the basis, from foundations, from knowledge of how to draw. Observation is key. Drawing requires close attention to proportion, detail, spatial relationship, and shape. Really look at what you're observing and break it down into simpler shapes and structures so that you understand every last bit of what makes that object. For example, a common thing to train yourself on is human bodies, but specifically hands, because they're very complex structures which in themselves consist of very simple shapes. Drawing hands always felt intimidating. Every time I tried to, they came out looking awkward, so to fix that, I took on a 100-hand challenge and drew every possible pose I could get my left hand into. The beginning was rocky, but eventually the hand started looking a bit more realistic. I experimented with color and style, and admittedly not every experiment paid off, but that's fine. We're here to play around, otherwise nothing new or truly unique would ever get produced. Now this was just an example of hands, right? There's a lot more you can explore, so below do check out the description. I will be leaving a lot of links for learning materials. A perfect example from art history here will be Leonardo da Vinci, a painter, engineer, scientist, sculptor, and many other things, but amongst all of them at the core, a person who was incredibly skilled at drawing. This skill is what helped him visualize his ideas with utmost precision. So his hand did not become the blocker for the brain. Expression and experimentation. Once you have the technical skill, drawing becomes a tool for personal expression and creativity. It's a way to translate emotions, thoughts, and concepts onto paper using a variety of mediums. Don't be shy to experiment with all the different tools that you can see. Try charcoal, ink, try watercolor pencils, try oil pastels, dry pastels, anything you can think of. Use your surrounding natural environment. You can even take a piece of paper, put it on top of the tree, and then just transfer with a little bit of charcoal the texture of the tree, and then try to draw the tree on top of it if you're observing that. Just make sure that you're looking. Keep your eyes open and observe. Also, find your favorite artist and look at how they're utilizing their medium. The way I find people like Harriet and Lewis, who you see on the screen now, is by just subscribing only to creative people through my design and art Instagram account. This way, my whole feed is filled with creativity and inspiration only, without the unnecessary noise. But also, of course, visit galleries, go to museums, go to those amazing places where you can find creativity and expression, modern art exhibitions, go small galleries also, or maybe look around with your friends, create art evenings with each other, just paint and draw and create. Because especially with people who don't often create with their hands, they might go for very unusual solutions, which is why sometimes artists take inspiration from children's work, because they go for something completely random, which you wouldn't have thought of, or I wouldn't have thought of either. So keep your eyes open. Again, observe and explore. To illustrate today's principle, instead of a large-scale project, I wanted to show you the iterative process of using your fundamental skill of drawing as a basis for something more abstract and stylized. I firmly believe that it's best to have the skill and not use it than need it and not have it. Realism is not my style of choice, but I try to brush up on the skill every once in a while because it serves a purpose, even if not directly. You see, the initial drawing is going to act as a basis for our 5 experiments down the line. My goal with each is to simplify the shape without losing the essence of my subject matter, which in this case is an open can of sardines. In my first experiment, I'm using tracing paper and a micron pen to add the key lines of the tin, and then using a brush tip marker to block in the main shadows. The reason why I'm tracing is to get my hand used to the shape a bit better, to then move on to unassisted drawing. Second experiment is using my non-dominant hand to make the initial sketch in one line without lifting the hand off the paper until the drawing is done. I like this technique as it takes away my ability to control the pencil and introduces variability in the weight of my line. I then use a felt tip marker to add those shadows in again, since I liked how heavy they looked on the other experiment and wanted to contrast them against the thin outline. For the third experiment, I repeated the same logic as in the first one, but limited myself to only using a pencil instead of a micron pen and a felt tip. For the fourth, I went in further into simplifying the tin and again used my left hand to not be too perfect about it. I tried removing all of the unnecessary lines which gave me too much additional context, aiming to only retain the essential elements which would be enough to convey the message that it is a tin of fish. And now for my last sketch, I want to go as simple as possible and also do it in a continuous line. So what I'm going to do is reference the image on the left. Okay, this one. This is my main image, the most detailed image. Let your hand do the thing. Maybe we can do the shadow also, and here I'm applying a lot less pressure, so to indicate that this is actually not the main bit of information that we're talking. I think I'll also go over it in a continuous line, in a shading motion. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but that's okay. We're experimenting. With a lot more pressure, outline the closing mechanism of the can to show that it's on the forefront. Sometimes you tend to go too deep. Maybe that's pretty much what I already did. I fully hate it. I'm gonna approach it in a similar way as I did this. It's technically kind of the same technique, but I'll try to give it a bit more variance. So instead of going into shading for the fish, we'll do the opposite. We'll actually color in all the lightest spots. So let's do that. In this exercise, I only showed you 5 ways of building atop a realistic drawing when in reality, the possibilities are endless. Don't stop at 5 and push the limits of your creativity. In my case, I only like 3 of the 5 tests that we did, but loving each and every one of them is not the point. Don't be precious about each stroke and just let your hand wander to see how far from the realistic start you may end up. Now, practically speaking, what might be your next steps? Let's see. Practice regularly. If you've read Atomic Habits by James Clear, you will know that our brain likes to follow the path of least resistance. So it's only natural for it to try and go doom scrolling instead of sitting behind a table learning a craft you're not really familiar with. Make it as easy for you as possible to practice daily if you can. So set your sketchbook somewhere on the table where it's easily accessible, put your art materials there already, and make it a point to do it every single time that you've come home or right after you had dinner or whenever you would rather sit on your phone and do something mindlessly. Not only will you relieve your brain from unnecessary input of information, but you will also learn a skill in the process and you won't even notice how you start becoming better and better. So in that sense, it's also very useful to just do a little bit of backtracking. Open the first page of your sketchbook when you first started and then a month in, and just compare it against what you're already learning and how much better you've gotten over time. Learn the basics. I won't be the best teacher for that, but there are plenty of people on YouTube, like I said, who I will be leaving down below. A great example of that being Nerdforge. She recently posted a tutorial from 0 to 100, basically, teaching her boyfriend from the beginning of how to draw. And she created a whole tutorial from learning how shapes work, how shadings work, what objects interact with each other, and how human body proportions work and stuff like that. So extremely helpful. Go check it out. And also don't just stop there. I know that it's very easy to get lost when an open sketchbook is just empty and you need to do something about it. So following some sort of guidelines to learn and grow your art skills is very helpful. So definitely explore that. Study from life. Now, you don't have to go to art school to do that. Of course, when we study in art school, we have nude models come and pose for us, and we usually paint them or draw them every week. You can try that from the comfort of your own home by going to Patreon, just surfing the internet, finding models and poses. You can look in the mirror to draw yourself. That's also one of the practices. You can be your best model. Take pictures of yourself or just look in the mirror, and while you're looking in the mirror, draw yourself. That's also very helpful. You can put a camera, pose whichever way. You can film it on video, take a couple of screenshots, and then understand how different shapes work, understand how your hand movement works, how the gestures look. My favorite example obviously being the hand. I'm right-handed, so I will draw with my right and look at my left, and that is completely easy for me to practice. So anything you can imagine, it's very much doable. One practice that I really like to apply, similar to my university experience when we did those live drawing sessions, is a thing called drink and draw. I think that should exist in most cities, most bigger cities as well, if it exists in Tallinn, in tiny country of Estonia. The model is posing nude, and the poses get to be changed quite frequently. Typically, it starts with a couple of poses of 2 minutes, 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, and maybe a 15-minute one when you have a little bit more time. But the whole point is that you need to act very quickly. You had just started, and then suddenly the time ran out, and you barely even did anything. You're not expected to produce your best work in those 5 or 10 minutes that you're being given, but you are expected to start freshening up your drawing skills. The same way how a professional athlete will need a little bit of a warm-up, artists also need that, no matter the skill level. So when you first start, those 2 minutes, those 5 minutes are just there for you to get used to how the model looks like, how her body behaves, what the shapes are doing, and then eventually you're able to spend a little bit more time in those 15 minutes to explore more in detail and focus or zoom in on a specific part which you want to highlight and be a bit more precise with. If you're not able to attend those sessions, I do know that at least that drink and draw that I go to in Estonia has Patreon, so I'll link that below as well. But otherwise, I'm sure there are plenty of other resources you can access on the internet to find different nude models. Why nude, you might think? Of course, you don't have to. You can go with someone who is dressed, but with a nude model, you learn all the details of the human body. That is very helpful when you're trying to draw someone who is clothed, when you're trying to draw someone who is an animated character, for example, as well, because then you understand which parts of the body belong. That's how you usually learn, and that's why you will also see a lot of historical figures or parts of art history examples that I've shown today also undressed, because that is natural. That is exactly how the human body looks like, so there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, and that's why in drink and draw examples or in any new drawing session, there's no shame in it. There is art, there's creativity, and all of us are there just to draw, nothing else. Many renowned artists such as Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, or Rembrandt have emphasized the importance of drawing. Their sketchbooks are filled with examples of how drawing underpins their masterpieces in painting and sculpture. While it's great to aim for your work to become a masterpiece, along the way please try to steer clear of locking yourself in the confines of perfectionism. Your sketchbook is not a place where each page is gallery ready. Make ugly things, experiment, leave all the unsuccessful attempts in, dip your fingers into charcoal, draw with your non-dominant hand, close your eyes while drawing. Just let that inner childlike wonder into your creative process and see how much it expands your creativity. If you'd like to see more of my older sketchbook pages, I've actually filmed a few sketchbook tours before, so feel free to check them out and maybe also flip over the subscribe button in the process to not miss the next class. Thank you for watching. Bye!